Welcome to Travel Market Life, your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
And hello, welcome to the Hospitality Monthly Review Show, March 2024, with our panel, Thibault Catala, CEO of Catala Consulting, Jonny Sibery, Group Revenue Manager at Sarova, and Daniel Simmons, CCO at HotelREZ. In our review shows, we look at pressing issues in the industry, as well as the landscape in front of us, getting insider knowledge from our expert panel and guest interviewees. In this episode, we'll catch up with our panellists before we tackle the latest developments and news of the sector, discuss business and corporate guests, industry challenges and travel trends. Then, I'll put my panellists through their paces as we dive into the quick quiz. Disclaimer, all opinions are their own. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. Let's get on with the show.
Travel Market Life.
Hello and welcome back, Thibault. Thanks ever so much. Good to see you. How have things been?
Excellent, yeah. Very nice seeing you, Ryan.
Now, big event of the moment. What is your focus?
ITB. I mean, that's the big event of the moment. I'm looking forward to catch up with a lot of partners, colleagues, hotels, and clients. And also, one of the main reasons I'm going to ITB is to launch a new website. So I'm going to tell you more in probably by next month. But stay tuned. There's something big coming.
Excellent, wonderful. I know this is going out during ITB, but the big parties are actually back. It was a bit muted last year, wasn't it? But I've already got a 9 p.m. plus event with on both the Tuesday and the Wednesday. But no doubt that you have so many invites for so many different events, Thibault. How are you managing your calendar to actually be at the right places at the right time?
But ITB is actually the ITB event is more the after parties more than the event itself. If you could just attend ITB and with the after parties, that's where the biggest networking, the biggest deals are done actually. Looking forward to all the great party. Not trying to be everywhere at the same time, but we just need to prioritize and find the best one.
Absolutely. I can't wait. It's all going to be going down there. Now, welcome back again to Jonny Sibery. Thank you. So you've been not only on a little bit of a holiday, what have you been doing on your holidays?
Went away with my better half and the dog, and we went camping down in Canterbury for a week. The weather was appalling. We had a storm Sunday. We thought the mobile chalet was going to blow over. We had to go out and rescue the awning in the night, but it's all part of the fun of camping. So we had a good time. Lots of rest and relaxation and walks in the woods with the dog and stuff like that. Yeah, it was great. Very
That's
happy.
amazing. That's amazing. I am, I can't believe that you can do that in February. That is remarkable. But it's been mild, hasn't it? So, but wet.
Very wet. I discovered at the wrong moment that my four-wheel drive is not a four-wheel drive and that four wheels doesn't work anymore. It's only a two-wheel drive. I discovered that as I got stuck in the mud, and it was there for nearly 24 hours before I managed to get towed out. So, yeah, a bit disappointed.
Oh, fantastic.
But
what's a camping trip without a bit of fun? Now,
exactly.
You've also been delving into a lot of fun recently with your P&L quarterly reviews.
Oh, so much fun.
Visiting your 4 properties, getting to see what's going on, and it seems to be an issue with forecasting.
Yeah, it's so difficult at the moment, Ryan. We're getting a lot of interest and new bookings and inquiries and events coming in that are confirmed, not confirmed, but are holding space, and it makes the future look rosy. The on the books figures are great. We're ahead year on year. And then all of a sudden, they, a week later, they all drop out for no particular reason. Some of them it's location, some of it's budget, some of it's the whole event's been cancelled. But, these are big, tens and tens of thousands of pounds pieces of value business bookings. So, it's really hard to predict. Some things that you think are really secure, and you do the show rounds and all of the interaction with the booker is great. It's all positive. You get a good feeling about it. And next thing, the email comes through, please release the space. You just can't rely on anything. It's crazy.
Well, you've just set the tone for the show, because we are going to be looking at business, corporate, MICE and events business coming up in just a little bit with all our panelists. And we also have a guest interviewer from the Zetter Hotels to get their insight on what's happening. But up next, we have our third panelist, who is able to join us for the first time today, Daniel Simmons, the CCO at HotelREZ Hotels and Resorts. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right, so Daniel Simmons, Chief Commercial Officer, you've been with the company since 2005 and really been leading the group's sales, marketing, revenue and demand business plans, as well as at the forefront of the group's expansion via subsidiary brands World Rainbow Hotels and Best Love, and the evolving technological solutions. And you recently announced 52% revenue growth with HotelREZ. So congratulations, it seems that everything's on the up there.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's been fantastic. Last year it was really good productivity wise. And we're so lucky. We have such amazing clients. We've got fantastic hotels. I've got Jonny. I mean, he's one of our clients with Sarova. So it's a pleasure to have him on the podcast. But yeah, it's been incredible. And we're really good. I've been so busy going out, seeing our clients, looking at the way they use our systems and the GDS, trying to increase their corporate business. And of course, that when that slows down, we then look at the leisure side and try and increase that side of the business. But yeah, the 20 years of HotelREZ have gone fast, but we're having a big celebration later on this year, which will be great in October.
Excellent. Okay, we've got to look out for that. So can't wait to explore a bit more. So 20 years in business. Well done to HotelREZ. Now, you've been out and about as well. You've been to the Confex and the Exec PA show. Tell us a bit about those.
Yeah, so I've been going to Confex for quite a few years, and of course it's one of the old ones that used to be fantastic. It used to be the one where all the champagne was like all the was open in the afternoon. It's still a great show. Lots of my clients go there and have stands, which is great. Mainly for the meeting side. It wasn't so busy this year, I think, because they started to charge. So there's like a criteria to join. So I think that's had an effect on the visitor number. But the executive PA show, that's one to watch. I mean, if you're looking at just the transit and the meeting side, and you're a property, it's great. And really high-end audience there looking for like different, unique venues. So definitely one to watch for next year. It was really buzzy.
Excellent. Wonderful. And I've just come back from the Travolution Summit, and I'm going to be bringing that into discussion in the next section where we look at the news.
Travel Market Life.
Okay, so this is the In the News section where we look at some of the interesting articles and developments that have been happening within the industry. I and the panelists kind of pick a few of the topics and to have a quick discussion about them. So the first one I saw, and it seems to be a rising and ongoing trend at the moment, is this idea that hospitality meets haute couture. It's where reinventing hospitality uniforms. Now, we've obviously seen that for a number of years, particularly in the airline space. But hotels are stepping up their uniform game with creative collaborations that evoke a distinct sense of place. We've got ideas that have been sent out from the likes of Raffles Doha and the London Storied Hotels, which really sort of plays an idea to what's happening in the newly opened, for example, Como Singapore Metropolitan, that takes a fashion hospitality synergy to the next level, and employees sport Yohei Yamamoto-esque uniforms with sharp angles, asymmetrical. You can tell I don't do fashion, can't you? And asymmetrical silhouettes. So there's some big designers getting in there. And I actually recently had a conversation with the head of employer branding at the Marriott International of Central Europe, because they actually released last year some streetwear for their staff. Not to be worn whilst they're at work, but to give them a sense of brand and style outside of work, interesting enough. Have you seen that in your hotels? Is this something that you've seen a trend in across any of the properties that you've worked with? And what do you think of uniforms today in the industry, guys?
I think they're important to, identify who's who in one sense. Some of the boutique and the five-star hotels, as you drive past, and the doormen are regaled in gold and red and hats and stuff, but very traditional uniforms. But you've got to prioritize function over form, I think, for certainly some of the operational staff like housekeeping and restaurant staff like that, who are moving a lot and are very physical jobs, and they've got to be comfortable in what they're wearing. And the gilded jackets and the slim cut trousers and the boots and all of these sorts of things look great for a photo shoot. They're just not practical really in the real world to work in. So doormen, even luggage porters, are hoofing bags up and down stairs and to rooms all day long. They need to be comfortable in what they're wearing. So it's a great idea. Uniforms, yes, definitely important, but I think there's a limit where you can go with, hey, look how great this looks, to this is absolutely useless, I can't work in this.
Something functional then. And then Daniel, you visit a lot of properties as well. What's your thoughts and what are you seeing here?
I mean, I love it. I mean, I remember when Ian Schrager opened the hotel in St Martin's Lane, everyone was just rushing there to see the designer outfits. And it was such a buzz thing in like the 90s. I think definitely for luxury brands, I mean, it's all to do with what you're experiencing. You don't want to like walk into a hotel and see someone in a like horrible outfit with like polyester trousers. You want something smart and designer. And I also think that people want a bit of excitement and culture. So if you're going to hotels that are overseas, obviously it has to be done very tastefully with the culture. But I think it's great to, also introduce the culture when you go to hotels across the world. No, I love the idea. But as Jonny said, it has to be practical. And I remember going to a hotel recently in London. It wasn't one of ours, I have to say. And the outfits were just crazy in the restaurant, absolutely crazy. And actually, the people that worked there were commenting on how inappropriate they were.
Oh, wow.
But no, I love it. Great idea. Everyone should look fantastic for the guests when you check in.
I mean, it's fascinating because I think there's been a bit of a draw away from actually having uniforms in recent years. But my problem is if you walk into somewhere and I can't distinct who is an employee there, who can actually help me, then I then struggle with where I get the support for customer service or anything like that, because then I just feel like I'm sort of rushing around trying to find someone, and there's actually no one there. Thibault, I mean, is this anything that you particularly note within the properties that you work with, or is everybody just suited and booted?
No, and I think the trend is actually a bigger one, much more related to partnership and collaboration. And that's a trend we see more and more for commercial and marketing activities, much more than the practical uniform or uniform and for the staff, because we see a lot of collaboration already for the last 10 to 20 years, where you have hotels which are putting their brand, I don't know, the Carlton can with a specific designer for like flip flops or like a swim bag and so on, and that's kind of a collaboration which help hotels to tap in at the same time with the brands which they associate with, like Dior and the Carlton can, which match what they have. So at the same time, Dior match the brand of the Carlton, and then the Carlton match with Dior, for example. Now it's very important that those kind of collaboration match the culture, but if done very well done, it can elevate both brands at the same time by associating themselves on above. And I can tell you thousands of case studies of collaboration, and that's a trend in hotels, but that's a trend everywhere else, with like a Fortnite and Balenciaga, all this kind of stuff. And that's a larger trend that we see more and more. And done right, it can be super useful and very high leverage for the industry.
And I guess we've seen this within toiletries for many, many years. And it just makes sense as well, as you say, to look at uniforms. Moving on to our next story. Short-term rental prices are growing faster than hotels. So while the average change in rates for Q4 year over year was plus 16% across all markets, hotels averaged at 11% compared to 21% in one-bedroom short-term rentals. Now, this is, we've looked at different data and stuff, and we looked at pricing and data last month in particular. But, this competition with short-term rentals, Daniel, you work a lot with serviced apartments, and I guess, there's a lot of one beds in that as well. How are you seeing that market perform compared to hotels?
Well, I mean, we're so lucky because we work with so many apart hotels, which work on the long-term rentals and the short-term. I mean, it's kind of, our business is the GDS, which is mainly the corporates and the travel agencies, the big travel agencies. And they just love apart hotels. It's the buzz thing, and you can get really high rates. And I think people like them. I think there's more space. The working away from home, so you've got your own area, probably a separate living room. If you combine it with leisure, there's more room if you bring family and friends to stay. You have the privacy. Also for expenses, you can make your own meals, have breakfast there. So it actually reduces expenses. So we are seeing the apart hotels, so there's so many of them now across the world, are the buzz thing in our market, and they really are commanding high rates, which is great for us and for them.
And I'm certainly seeing as well a lot of international groups either acquire short-term properties or look at renovating their properties so that they have a number of units that are actually like one-bed apartment style sort of units to be able to rent as well. So you are seeing that diversification.
It's competing against Airbnb, I think. But I think the problem with having them overseas is there's lots of rules and regulations. I think especially people in America and now Amsterdam have brought it in. You have to have minimum stays, and I think that's going to be a problem moving forward.
Yeah, there is a lot of regulation coming in overseas destinations, particularly Europe. I think where these holiday lets and people renting their house or rooms in the house became a big thing, as Daniel says, the Airbnb effect. And people jumped on the bandwagon, and they were basically making a lot of free cash. They weren't running a business per se. They weren't paying their appropriate fees or dues. And obviously the authorities clamped down on this, rightly or wrongly, whatever. The regulation, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but as far as I understand, because I'm not involved in this space, the regulation in the UK hasn't come in as tightly. But I suppose give it time, it will do. But the rise in availability or the inventory of these products is increasing massively. I had a meeting literally 2 weeks ago with somebody who's in this space, and their listings for London alone of all units, all properties, hotels, apartments, short-term lets, everything in January 2023 was 7,000 units. January 2024 is 12,000 units. It had almost doubled in 1 year. And we know there's been a lot of new hotels opened, and a unit for them is one. So if it's a 5-bedroom hotel or a 1,000-bedroom hotel, that's one unit, so they have 5,000 new units. There's been a lot of new hotels in London, but clearly the lion's share of that increase is apartments. And everywhere you go, everywhere, they're just boom, high-rise blocks of flats going up. Everywhere there's a square meter of land, put a tower on it. And for sure, people are buying these and letting them straight away. They're not living in them. They're rentals all the time.
I mean, it's big business, quite clearly big business. Thibault, is it an area that you particularly work with?
That's and to answer your question about the rate increase on the short-term rental, I think this industry is becoming more and more mature and much more savvy than before. For example, in the last few months, we have received much more and many leads coming from service apartments or small operator or small and big operator, because now they understand there's a world out there regarding revenue management, regarding tech and so on, which they were not aware before because it was still quite new and a new industry on those kind of services. But now they're becoming much more savvy. They have much more tech available to cater for their needs. And today we are working with, we have 3-4 big clients on service apartment, but every day I receive 1 or 2 leads for service apartment, because they now understand there's a whole new world when it comes to optimization, when it comes to revenue management. And now we are applying the same ABC that we did for hotels to service apartment. And people who are actually leveraging those new tools are doubling up, tripling up their revenue from before. So to answer your question, I understand there is a growth on the service apartment, both from the availability, but the market is starting to get more mature and more savvy, and now they are taking all the fruits for the new tools and the techniques that they're using.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to new openings. Always like to know about a new hotel that's coming to the market. The first one, quite a landmark in London. The BT Tower is set to become a hotel following a 275 million deal, now that BT no longer needs it as part of its infrastructure. And then secondly, Merlin Entertainments is opening a 16.4 million hotel at Warwick Castle. So this is a tourist attraction, nestling in on hospitality and opening their own piece of accommodation there. Thoughts on that? A BT Tower hotel? I mean, have you ever been up there? It's quite an extraordinary view. I don't know how many rooms they get.
So I was lucky enough because we have Open London and you're allowed to go into sites that are normally closed. So I applied in the ballot about 2 years ago and I did go up there. And I have to say, it's such an iconic building. I mean, it was an amazing experience to do and go up there. I'm all for it. I think like having these historic landmarks and turning them into like hotels where people can enjoy it and see it is fantastic. And also, it's all to do with the economy. It will boost jobs. It will make the area more, more profitable. I think it's a great idea. Anything to boost tourism, I think is great. And all these empty buildings, I think, should be turned into properties.
Steady on, though. We need to control competition levels. Don't go too wild with that idea. Don't tell too many people.
That's something you mentioned. That's something you mentioned, Daniel. And I think it's all about experiences. People are looking for experiences much more than the hotel itself. And that's why people after this, they will say, oh, but by the way, I slept into the BT Tower. And that was, the view was great and so on. But it was an experience. You know what I mean? Same with the Warwick Castle. And I will see more and more application of those kind of experience-driven customer and as well investor, because they need some investor behind. But it's all about experience. Now, the BT Tower, I'm not sure if there is quite a lot of space to accommodate quite a lot of rooms. So I need to see how it looks like in terms of design of the rooms and so on, but why not? And then I'm not sure about I'm not sure if it will be like a one-off where people will sleep into the Warwick Castle or the BT Tower just to experience it. But I'm not sure if they will be back. So that will be up to the brand or the services within those hotels to make a good job for them to come back and not only look at the experience, but as well as the hotel experience. That's what I'm afraid, but I'm all for those kind of experiences.
I mean, it definitely seems that Merlin Hotels is going to be making this Warwick Castle quite an experience. It's due to be a medieval-themed hotel. Each room in the hotel gives a nod to the War of the Roses, with rose motifs, chambers draped in rich coloured fabrics and featuring wooden beams and shields. So, I think for anybody coming inbound, it will most definitely be an experience. And talking about inbound, check out our March edition of the Travel Monthly Review Show, which will be out in a couple of weeks' time, because we have some data and insights about the UK inbound tourism business. Right, moving over to our final story then. I was at Travolution Summit. There was a panel talking about distribution and mainly airlines, but EasyJet Holidays was up there, and they were talking about, what could there be on their wish list. And interestingly, they were saying how it would be great if hoteliers could have access to flights so they can see availability of flight prices and flight bookings in order to be able to have this reverse concept of making packages. So as and when hoteliers have a room availability, to be able to create packages to drive that demand and therefore creating dynamism in the market that doesn't exist today. And there's been numerous different widgets that you could incorporate into existing websites, but they've been pretty much standalone to hotel bookings. How do you see this as an opportunity for the hospitality industry, or where do you see potential challenges there of seeing this as a reality?
I think it's great, actually. I mean, historically, I know that the hotels we represent, we always look at the airports and what airlines are coming in to target. And then what we do is we go to those airlines and we look at either the reward programs and how we tap into those for the leisure market. Or we look into the tour operator side, like BA Holidays is a fantastic producer for some of our properties. So this is kind of taking it to the next level, because I suppose historically you worked on just whenever you got bookings because they were packaging it. And it was either a flexible rate or a fixed rate. So I suppose this is kind of incorporating AI, demand, supply. I don't know how it's going to work, but I think this is the way it's going to move with everything like this. So I think it's one to watch, and it's exciting.
How about you, Jonny? When you're sort of looking at sort of creating that demand, will this be useful to look at creating packages for people from outside of the UK to get them in?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's an interesting concept. We kind of do it already. I've got to be honest. We do work with some airlines with their package programs and their holiday programs already, and we see quite a big, very strong inbound market from the US predominantly into London. More recently, the European market has picked up as well, but it's stronger in the US. But we work closely with our account managers, and we know our quiet seasons and their quiet seasons and vice versa. And we work together with pricing. We do dynamic pricing with one of them now as well. So we can flex the price daily, weekly, seasonally, however it goes. And we work with when their loading is low, we work with them to try and boost sales. And they've got much bigger budgets than us. So they do the marketing and the sales campaigns. And we tag along with the good pricing behind it. And so it does work. There's no question about it because I've seen the results. And, so what EasyJet are proposing, we're kind of doing already. You need to have the integration is the key metric here to make this work, the integration and technology to be able to do it. If it was anything manual like allocation sheets or, spreadsheet with pricing that you email off and someone loads them in the system on their end, way too manual, it's never going to work. It's got to be seamless end-to-end connectivity. But yeah, definitely if we can expand that.
I think those kind of data are already available on Hotel Insight, Lighthouse, on the marketing side, and they are actually partnering up with some data from flight and so on to give back some information about the level of bookings and demand for specific days and destination. So those kind of information are already available. I think it can be useful for hotels to review from time to time to see if the strategy is in line or not. But the more useful collaboration and integration will be actually to integrate those kind of information into the algorithm of some revenue management system, such as I won't name any, but to integrate those kind of data to forecast more accurately the demand for any specific day and destination within the algorithm of the RMS. And for me, that will make our life much easier and much more accurate when it comes to forecasting and when it comes to pricing adjustment.
Excellent. Wonderful, guys. Thank you for that trip around the news between February and March. We're going to move on to our topic of discussion for today, which is looking at business, corporate guest events and MICE. Just after this break, where we will first hear from Jeremy Daudin, the head of sales and marketing at Zetter Hotels.
Travel Market Life.
Joining me now is Jeremy Daudin, Head of Sales and Marketing at the Zetter. Thanks ever so much for joining us today there, Jeremy. I know that you've seen some really interesting developments from the booking side for the corporate market. What sort of changes are you seeing in booking patterns and demand?
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Well, first of all, the lead time that we see for corporate bookings have kind of gone back to pre-COVID levels. Whereas during COVID, everything was extremely last minute. It was literally for the day or the day before. They've kind of gone back to, more, I would say, settled lead time where there's no rush really. People are planning ahead again with their travel. Kind of adding another week lead time, whereas before it would have been 3 weeks lead time.
What is the relationships and all the expectations like from the corporate agencies that are actually making these bookings now? I mean, has their approach changed in a way that they engage with you to make these bookings?
Funny you should ask, Ryan. Actually, those agencies don't really make the bookings anymore. Everyone's kind of moved on to self-booking tools. So yes, they help you loading the rates, but once they're on their booking tool, the corporate travelers actually make their own bookings. So it's a lot harder to actually reach out to those agencies. They're just the middleman, but they don't really do much, from my experience. So yeah, really, corporate travelers are making their own bookings now. But in terms of planning ahead, yes, I mean, I think those are kind of more settled levels. We can definitely look at the pickup and then try to adapt our strategy depending on how business is. If it's too soft or if they're coming in strong, then we can start blocking out some of the corporates.
That's really interesting, and particularly as you move in more towards that digitalization. And does that give you greater control of the rates, or are they sort of hard bargaining much more and negotiated rates in advance before sort of moving forward and partnering with the Zetter?
Well, all those RFPs are coming, in September for the year after. So negotiations this year were really tough, actually. Travel managers we're very looking at rates, what you were going to get into the rates, or all the amenities that you want to offer. But some of the points were also big on sustainability. They wanted to make sure that you were sustainable and what are actually the things you do for sustainability. So I've got a feeling that as we move further and further, we're going to have to be more transparent with what we do in terms of sustainability and report on what we do.
What are you seeing perhaps some of the key traits maybe from business guests that has changed, or their expectations themselves for what they want from the property?
I think expectations are pretty much the same. In corporate travelers, they're easy to understand. They need a good hotel with a good bed, good water pressure, good Wi-Fi, and breakfast. And it seems easy, but it's true. That's what they need. Really, the expectations are coming from higher above, as I said, travel managers or purchasing managers. But in terms of patterns, going back to your previous questions, the corporate nights are Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so we get very high demand on those 2 nights, and then we're struggling to fill in on the Mondays and Thursdays because travelers are just only coming for 2 nights and then they go home. Whereas during COVID, they were traveling for much longer and staying for longer to all those tests, etc. So we have to adapt to different week now. So those two nights are really the key nights that we can really make money. And then for the other shorter nights, we need to adapt a strategy to be able to fill the hotels.
Interesting conversation there with Jeremy Daudin, the head of sales and marketing at Zetter Hotels. Now, just to have a look at some data and stats that we've been looking into the market, a Deloitte survey reveals that relocated employees are increasingly traveling to company headquarters, with a notable 70% of these trips being fully or partially funded by the employer. And 80% of travelers say it's essential to book trips fully online. To that end, hotels should enable guests to easily view and filter amenities and services that will be available upon arrival. 81% of business travelers are engaging in some form of variation of leisure travel. 61% of their travelers include leisure activities in their itinerary, while 41% are lengthening their stay to carve out some time around their work trip. The percentage of business trips that become a leisure trip varies from country to country. 56% in the UK, 65% in Germany, and 62% in China. And 17% of leisure trips last 4 nights or more, 31% are 3 nights in length, and 39% are 2 nights, with just 12% of leisure travellers away for 1 night only. So, John, so you and Zetter both have properties in London. Some of the sentiments that Jeremy was saying there, how are you seeing that as part of the Sarova group?
Very similar, actually, to what Jeremy was saying, certainly about the lead times. We're seeing them, again, kind of back to pre-COVID levels. Business travelers are being a bit more proactive with their travel arrangements, planning a little bit further in ahead. I mean, corporate business has generally been fairly short lead anyway in the main. 3 to 4 weeks is when a lot of the corporate bookings come in. And we're sort of seeing it getting back to those levels. A couple of years ago, well, last year and even some in 2022, it was as short as 5 to 7 days. But I think that was more to do with the restrictions and the question about whether can I travel or can I not, leave it to the last minute. Yes, I can, book it, go. So that's what influenced that lead time. And also, yes, being creative or more dynamic with pricing and negotiations is a key one at the moment, with maybe various pricing on days of the week. Weekends, you can do what you like for weekends, but really you're not going to get any corporate business. But certainly Mondays and Thursdays, some incentive to stay on those nights. It's well known that Tuesday, Wednesday is the peak nights for a corporate, and that will certainly drive big occupancies. But to get them to maybe arrive a day early, stay a day extra with a price incentive is, one of the tools or little incentives that we're using in negotiations this year. So it's like everything in the hotel industry. It's a new learning. It's a new forum. It's a new platform. Corporate business negotiations. It's not what it used to be, and it'll never be that again. And we're learning, how to manage it.
I mean, it's obviously particularly interesting that a lot more of these bookings are being made by the business traveller themselves through that booking portal, which obviously based on predefined negotiated rates. As you mentioned, a lot more tougher negotiations there. Daniel, you deal with a lot of this sort of like events and MICE business and corporate deals and RFPs. What are you seeing across your portfolio?
I mean, we didn't really have an RFP season for quite a few years because of the pandemic. So it definitely started again last year for this year. Everything's like dynamic now. Most people, apart from government business and certain sectors, want dynamic rates. Self-booking tools, that was the part I picked up from what Jeremy said, which is so important now, especially for properties, to realize how that works. I think there is still biasing on what the actual person booking sees. Because if a property or a group has preferred partnerships and kickbacks and high commissions with the TMCs and consortia, they will be at the top of the list, even on the self-booking tools. But with these self-booking tools, I think what's really something important is, of course, it doesn't just link to the GDS and the RFPs or the bar rates. It also links to a lot of OTAs, including Booking.com. So what we're finding from a lot of clients is they're saying, well, how come suddenly all this business I was getting from this TMC or this big agency, how come it's now coming through Booking.com and it's tied into the self-booking tool? And you have to be really careful. I'm sure everyone's saying that. You have to be really careful with the cost to sell because now all the channels are diluted. You don't know what's coming from where.
Yeah, we've seen a very sudden and very obvious increase in corporate travel through the OTAs and predominantly Booking.com. They've been virile going out, securing these contracts for sure. They've got a big sales team behind it. And there must be some profit share behind. There's got to be an incentive to have Booking.com as your backup rate or accommodation provider. But yeah, big increase in those. Makes it a bit of a challenge really for us as well, because the whole dynamic of the booking and the payment processing is completely different to Joe Public and the transient traveller that we're used to having through the OTAs, who book, turn up, pay their own, check out, go, and that's it. And now we're having to get involved with virtual credit cards and corporate payments and submitting invoices to this source at the end of it, and all of this sort of stuff. And it's dumping a lot of extra work on the hotels that really we're not geared up to deal with, and it's not our job to do, quite frankly. But they just insist on it, and if we say we're not doing it, they go, well, we'll book somewhere else then. So stuck between.
So we're hearing exactly the same from all our clients.
Corporate business, first of all, are back compared to the last few years because of the pandemic, and we felt like Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are actually full of corporate, which is a good news for key cities. Now, something which I agree with John and Daniel, RFP, corporate account, and companies are becoming more and more difficult to negotiate with, in a way that the supply in the market is so big that they have different options, different choices, and now they put their own a set of rules, and we try to negotiate, but I said, okay, if you don't agree with my rules, then I will go somewhere else. And that's the first year ever which I've seen some large corporate accounts offering some RFP, not for 1 year, but for 6 years. And that's you are in or out, and I have no clue what's going to happen in 6 months. So even less in 6 years. But you see where people are starting to get into the RFP, and even some companies. Today, the NLRA, the non-last room availability clauses, that's something which I see less and less, almost like not anymore. And all the companies, they push for LRA, and they push for longer contract at a fixed rate, or sometimes dynamic when they're a bit more savvy. But now the companies are setting their own rules, and the hotelier has to follow if they want to get in. And that's not a negotiation that we used to have before, when it was like, I said this, you do this, and that's kind of a negotiation. Now the corporate are just like very heavy on the hotelier, and that's a tougher part now.
Okay, so not too bad in the sense that we've actually got more corporates coming back. We've got more business on the books as a consequence, but it's becoming a lot more difficult to handle. And regardless of the fact that we've got digital booking capabilities, that's causing a nightmare in itself. Oh, the wonders, isn't it? And one door opens, another one seems to slap us on the ass on the way out. Yeah. Right, okay. So coming up just after this is the industry challenges and travel trends.
Travel Market Life.
So, guys, I wanted to take an opportunity to look at one of the travel trends that we've been seeing over the last few months, and it seems to be well written about, well talked about, but I thought it's time to have a look at it from our perspective for hospitality in regards to tour tourism and the Swiftie effect. Yes, talking about that glamorous icon, Taylor Swift. Expedia predicts a tour tourism encore in 2024, with almost 70% of travelers polled claiming that they are more likely than ever to travel to a concert outside of their hometown. And I've certainly heard this amongst my friends. Furthermore, 40% said they travel for a concert as an excuse to visit a new place, while 30% would travel because tickets were cheaper elsewhere. I guess tickets are cheaper, and also accommodation can be a hell of a lot cheaper as well. I tried to get tickets for the latest Girls Aloud tour, but in the end I ended up with tickets in London rather than Birmingham, where I'd hoped to have gone. But is this something that you guys see? I mean, I guess, Jonny, in the city of London, you are guaranteed to get some sort of tour tourism, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked me, because coincidentally, I mean, for starters, she's an unstoppable machine. You gotta give her massive kudos. Well, her and her team. She's not a solo artist. She's not a one-man band in this thing, but the influence she's got is just incredible. But literally, a couple of weeks ago, I did an analysis of on the books occupancy, and I spoke to quite a few other friends and colleagues in other hotels and got their data as well and put it all together for up to the end of August. And as you would imagine, on a very basic bar graph of occupancy, tomorrow's date, it's quite a high bar, and as you get to the end of it, it just goes downhill slowly. That's natural progression. And what I plotted on it was the various events that are coming up over the next few months. On it, I've got Easter, Marathon, Champions League final, Taylor's both dates, the June and the August dates, Wimbledon and Farnborough Air Show. But for all events, as the graph sort of reduces slightly, there's a little bump, as you would expect, except for the 2 points where there's a Swift concert on. It's a massive jump. Wow. It's off the scale, and it's so obvious. If you didn't have the labels on there and you just looked at it, at the numbers on its own, anybody would go, what the hell's happening there? He's got Swiftie. And I go, oh, okay. And it's incredible. The occupancy on the books now for, I think it's end of June and middle of August are her dates. They're just on the books occupancy is crazy.
Thibault, have you seen something similar across Europe as you look after your clients and look at the market in general?
Yes, we have seen with Taylor Swift, but we have seen with a lot of, I think there's a customer change and customer behavior change where people are actually following up. And that goes back to my point about the experience. People are just like craving for experience. They're craving to get out and to experience face-to-face because they've been stuck inside for the last 2 to 3 years. So now there's this huge demand for those experiences. Yes, we are seeing some spike of demand for Taylor Swift, but very interestingly on this report from Expedia, also the customer trying to forecast the demand and the destination based on the Netflix series shows or like anything. It's like about White Lotus, about like all those kind of destination. So today, customers' expectation and the behaviors are changing, and us as revenue manager, we just need to be very curious about those new trends, being very aware of those kind of slight start of uptick into the demand to be able to adjust the strategy as soon as possible. Because the moment Taylor Swift is announced in destination, I can guarantee you that if you're not ready for this, then you will sell a lot of reservation at a very cheap price. So it's very important to be on top of all those new trends. being a fan or not, but at least you just need to make sure you're on top of something because it happens very quickly.
I guess we saw the same thing in Liverpool last year with the Eurovision happening, and suddenly a load of hotels cancelling a lot of bookings in order to maximise bookings with those rates to get those who are actually attending the show. Is it something that you've plotted at all with HotelREZ or had conversations about with your customers up and down the country and across the world, Daniel?
I mean, it's great for the hotels because obviously they get really high rates and ADRs. I mean, Taylor Swift, I think Singapore, I mean, it's made like $500,000 of revenue. I don't think that's just hospitality. I just think that's everything because, of course, it has a knock-on effect. I mean, the next one everyone's talking about is Adele in Munich, which I've actually got tickets for. And hotels are selling for like €600 a night. And actually, for me, as like a consumer going to that one, it leaves a funny taste actually, because you think to yourself, obviously all the properties and inflating the rates, which is great because they get more revenue. But then it just, leaves a bit of a feeling like, why are they charging such crazy prices? But as John said, I mean, we've had it with, we've had it with Wimbledon. I mean, in London, especially any event, and also the Olympics. I mean, it's great when the city gets it, isn't it?
I was going to say, obviously you got Paris this year, and it's sort of focused on that, and rates are also starting to go crazy for that. Okay, great, wonderful. Thanks, guys, for that insight there. Time is moving on, and it's time to get to challenge you with a quick quiz. Are you ready?
Yes.
Great. We'll be with you in just a moment.
Travel Market Life.
Okay, guys, have you got your instruments, your sounds, your noises, something to make?
I've invested £2.99 since the last podcast, Ryan, because the bell I had, unbeknown to me at the time, was driving my dog absolutely nuts. I was in here in my home office with the door closed, ding-a-ling-a-ling outside. The whole family were trying to contain the dog. So I've reinvested and I've got myself a little buzzer. Great
to hear. Thibault's got the glass, and Daniel has...
I feel like, I don't know, I had to rush out this morning, to be honest, and buy these from the £1 shop, the pound shop in the corner. So if they don't work, apologies.
Okay, all right. Well, let's see how we get on then. So Daniel's going to use his hands, and we'll get him a buzzer for next time. Here we go. All right. Question number 1 is an industry question. Which country, after China and USA, currently has the most hotel rooms under construction? Jonny.
I'm going to guess UK because there's a lot, but I have no idea.
No.
I was going to say that.
Oh, we're both wrong.
Okay. It's Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
I know. That was far
away. A huge level of investment in that. Okay, next question. A history question. Which hotel did Alexander Graham Bell makes the first London phone call?
Was it the Travelodge Paddington? Oh, no idea.
Thibault?
The Savoy.
No. Daniel, did you have an idea?
Was it the Ritz?
The Browns Hotel.
Oh, okay.
A geography next. In which country did singer Michael Jackson dangle a baby out the window? Jonny.
Definitely know this one. It was London. It was the Dorchester and Park Lane.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Was it in Spain?
No, it wasn't.
I think it's in France.
No, it wasn't. It was in Berlin, Germany, at the Hotel just where those gates are.
Okay. Gosh, we have really bad.
Oh God, you guys are terrible.
I'm going to go to the video reference.
No, I know we're bad at this.
Right.
Okay.
Destination question now. Where in the world can you find several capsule hotels that offer rooms an average of 6.5 feet long and 5 feet wide? Where in the world can you find capsule hotels that offer rooms 6.5 by 5 feet wide? Jonny, did you buzz?
I did. Japan, I think.
Yes, you can. That's
Oh,
correct. Tokyo,
finally.
Japan.
I
Got
was
it right.
With 1 point out of 4 questions so far. Oh, no, that's 4 questions. Yes, it's Jonny. Well done. Nil point to Thibault and Daniel. Final question then. Technology. When it comes to hotel systems, what does POS stand for? Thibault.
Point of sale.
Oh, no.
Yay!
Yeah.
Well done. Okay, so bonus point. This is to see who wins between Thibault and Jonny. Sorry, Daniel, you are out. So the bonus point is, when was the cash register invented? Closest date, closest year, please. Go on, Jonny.
1750.
Okay, Thibault.
1854.
Thibault is closest. It's 1879. Well done, Thibault. You win this month's edition of the Quick Quiz. With 2 points, yes. I had to go to a
Really
6th
bad.
question there. 3 questions were unanswered. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. I will work harder on my quiz in future. Right,
Disappointing
okay.
result. Shame on us.
It was wonderful to catch up with you all. It's wonderful to also hear your opinions and insights into the industry. Thanks ever so much for contributing, and I look forward to catching up with you next month.
Thanks, guys. See you all soon.
Cheers, Ryan. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.